Good morning, good people. So, talking about all of these different traditions and paths and ways to cast circles and create sacred space and all these different methods, I don't think they'd be complete if we didn't discuss ethics. Now, we're usually quite familiar, if you've been following any kind of magical or occult path, quite familiar with Wicca and the Wiccan Rede and the threefold law, the law of karma, etc., etc. But there are others. There are definitely others that are worth mentioning, which don't get mentioned often. So that's what I'm going to do today. My favourite actually came from Chaos Magic. I specifically read it on Phil Hines' old site, which was a fantastic site. I wish he didn't take it down. Had a lot of articles on it, rituals, chaos magic rituals. It was just fantastic. Anyway, the ethic that was spoken of on there was very simple and very straightforward. If you can't stand up in front of a crowd of people, including your friends and family, and tell them exactly what you did, don't do it. Simple as that. If it would make you feel guilty, just do not do it. If you have no problem standing up in front of a crowd of people and telling them exactly what you did, then go ahead. You know, really, really quite simple. But let's have a look at I want to have a look at the Wiccan Rede, and then there's a law of ethics in traditional witchcraft from Robert Cochrane, which I want to quickly have a look at. So this won't be a lengthy video, by no means. You know, there's a lot of laws out there, and karma itself does have a specific definition, a specific explanation to it, but a lot of people tend to kind of twist it a bit. So I think with things like karma, I think in many cases it becomes very personal on how you interpret karma. So with karma, I don't want to talk about that one. It's better you go and make up your own mind about karma and what it is. Do the research, find out what the Hindus have to say about it, find out what the Kabbalists have to say about it, and then make up your own mind about that one. So the Wiccan Rede itself comprises of 8 words: "And ye harm none, do what thou wilt." Simple. So just to discuss that a little bit, it is kind of basic. It is very basic. It's quite broad actually. You know, if what you're doing doesn't harm anything or anyone, then you know, go ahead and do it. There's a lot of people who will start saying that in order to do anything, you have to harm something, whether it's bacteria, germs, whatever it may be, and in some cases you need to harm things in order to get the results that you need. So as I say, it is very broad and basic, and people I think go a bit overboard trying to justify their actions against the Wiccan Rede. So again, it becomes personal. You've got to decide for yourself how you feel about it. In Wicca itself, they do often, a lot of Wiccans actually follow the charge of the goddess as well. So have a look at that one. But the Wiccan Rede is the one that holds up, basically holds up the whole building. The Wiccan Rede itself, read means instruction. It's an instruction of how to live your life, how to go about your life, how to act, how to be, and it holds, the Wiccan Rede itself holds a lot of law. We often think of the Wiccan Rede as just the 8 words, but it's not. It's an entire poem. And there's a lot of law in there about plants, plant magic, the cycles of the year, just loads and loads of lore in there that you can actually take into your practice itself. Whether you're a Wiccan, whether you're a witch, you know, some witches even follow the Wiccan Rede because of the lore that's in it. But that is the what's called the long read. And you can go and have a search for it on Google. Just search long read, and you should find the whole poem. There were actually two poems. The one person who wrote the poem claimed it was the original, but it wasn't. She apparently got it from her grandmother before Wicca itself. Then the actual long read that we know today was actually created by Doreen Valiant, and it's kind of came out of some things that Gerald Gardner had written about, and then she developed the whole poem out of that. I do personally think that a lot of the laws, the ethical and moral laws that are in Wicca go a bit overboard. I mean, you've got the Wiccan Rede, which is, and you harm none, and sometimes that's impossible. If you have to harm somebody in self-defense because they're trying to attack you or your family, then you haven't got a choice. There's no turning the other cheek. You've got to defend your family. But then you get the law, as I say, you get the law of karma, and some people interpret it as what somebody does, they're going to get back to them. It's going to be returned on them. But then we have the threefold law. If you do whatever you do returns to you 3 times 3. So, you know, it's kind of pushing the boundaries a bit too much into you have to be good or else you're going to be punished, and this then starts to, I feel, border on Christianity, and you know, God's going to strike you down if you're naughty. So I don't particularly agree with the Wiccan laws themselves, although I do think that the Wiccan Rede is very valuable. And I think one of the scary things is that not so much nowadays, but in the past I came across people who claimed to be Wicca but had never even heard of the long read. Obviously they'd heard of the normal read and the 8 words, but the long read they haven't even heard of. I think this is very, very much book read type Wicca, Wiccan-esque people. You know, they just don't seem to be educatable. It's not really their fault, I suppose. If they're reading books that are about Wicca and those books do not mention the long read, you know, they're not going to know about it, obviously. So the fault, I think, is more on the education. You know, people just aren't being educated properly. But I mean, this whole and you harm none law, read, instruction, you can kind of trace it back. So Gardner was a student of Crowley. He met Crowley, he followed the Golden Dawn for a while, and the tenet of Thelema is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. But now, where did Crowley get that from? There was a book by Rabelais that he got it from. So you can kind of trace the thing from person to person and back into history. But now, one thing that I came across years ago was that when it speaks of thou in the 8 words in the Thelema tenet, do what thou wilt, do what thou wilt. Thou in this circumstance is not talking about you. It's actually talking about your holy guardian angel and your true will. So if what you're doing goes against your true will, then do it. But if it if it goes against your true will, then don't do it. If it is in line with your true will, then go ahead and do it. So it's not necessarily about your physical actions and the things you do in life. It's also about your own true will, your own relationship with your holy guardian angel, and your true self. So, you know, maybe think about it in those terms as well. And you know, you'll probably get a bit more out of it. Okay, and then I spoke about the traditional witch, the ethics of the traditional witch, or what was termed the witch law, which was spoken about by Robert Cochrane. He wrote it in a letter to Joe Bear Walker Wilson. Now, Joe Bear Walker Wilson was a founder of 1734 tradition. He was an absolutely fantastic man. But in the letter, Cochrane, he stated the following: "A piece of advice, if I may be allowed to give it, is that no philosophy, no creed, no God is worth more than the love that one human being may give and receive in their lifetime. This is what I meant by being involved. It doesn't really matter how wise or knowledgeable one is, provided one can love and be loved in return. In this way, the Christian ethos of loving one's neighbour is very true. All one needs after that is the witch law. And the witch law is: do not do what you desire, do what is necessary. Take all you are given, give all of yourself. What I have, I hold. When all else is lost, and not until then, prepare to die with dignity." And then he goes on to say, "These may sound like peculiar laws, but they are wise and based upon experience. The first is perhaps one of the most difficult criterions to live by, since there is no room for illusion. The second allows you little time for yourself. The third is the keystone of wisdom, and the fourth is the basic key to the witch personality." Now, there are obviously many ways that you can interpret these laws. So it's up to the person, the individual, to actually consider them, mull them over, and interpret them the way they feel is ethically correct. Make them personal to yourself. And that's all I wanted to discuss about the laws or the ethical basis within witchcraft, Wicca. As I said, a lot of it is personal interpretation and the way we actually view things in life. So, take these ethical laws, take these rules, take these instructions on life, and see how you feel about them, and find the one that works for you. As I said, the one from Chaos Magick. If you can't stand up in front of a crowd and tell people exactly what you did, just simply don't do it. Simple as that. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.